Hey book lovers, welcome to While I Read. I'm Katie, and here on my channel I talk about books in the mystery, thriller, cozy mystery genre. Today I'm going to be talking about my favorite books with older or more mature sleuths. So many cozy mysteries have main characters who are in their 20s and 30s, and I really enjoy those younger main characters. But now that I'm in my mid 40s myself, I also like books with middle-aged and elderly sleuths. So that's what I'm going to be talking about in this video. Let's go ahead and get started. The first series that I want to tell you about is the Cat in the Stacks mystery series by Miranda James. The main character, Sleuth, in this book is Charlie Harris, and he is in his 50s. So Charlie is a librarian. He has returned to his hometown of Athena, Mississippi. He's living in this house that was owned by his aunt. He inherited it from her. He has a Maine Coon cat named Diesel who goes everywhere with him. He goes to work with Charlie. He goes to parties with him. He runs errands around town with Charlie. So Diesel is a big character in the series. Charlie works part-time as a librarian at the Athena College Library, and he is always solving mysteries that happen somewhere around town. These books are set in the South, in Mississippi, so I love the Southern hospitality aspect of it. Charlie is a really good, complex character. He has been widowed within like the past year or so in the first book. He has adult children who eventually become big parts of the series. He has a maid who works for him named Azalea, who is a great part of the series. He ends up having a romance with a woman who he knew when he was younger and reconnects with. He's just a really fun character to read about. We get to see some of his grief that he has about the people that he's lost in his past, but also how he is happy in the life that he has now in his beloved hometown. This is a great series with a sleuth in his 50s, also a male sleuth, which we don't see very often. Next, I want to talk about the Pacific Northwest Cozy Mystery series by Kim Griswold. This is a series that I've just started. There are only 2 books in it so far, so it's a really easy one to jump into if you want to. It's about a writer named Safi Graywood. I'm not sure that it tells her exact age, but she's definitely in like her late 40s, early 50s. She is traveling around the country in an RV. She and her husband were doing this together as sort of a retirement project, but her husband passed away. Safi is continuing on her own. When the books start, he's been dead for about 3 years, so she still feels grief for him. She talks sometimes about how at first she was very depressed and just found life really difficult. As the books are starting, she's kind of pulling herself out of that grief and trying her best to continue and to find some joy in her life. And she does. She ends up in this town in Maine called Last Chance Cove. She's living in her RV. She meets some friends. We kind of get this found family aspect when she becomes close to other people in the RV park, to a waitress at a restaurant where she goes a lot and eats this delicious clam chowder. The books are just beautifully described. In the second book in the series, it's set at this abandoned theme park that this retired actor has turned into a horror theme park for Halloween. So both of the books are really fun. There's good mysteries to solve. I really love Safi. She's a complex character. She's lived a lot of life, so definitely more mature than the 20s and 30s sleuths that we normally see. She is also a writer, and I always love books that feature writers. Next, I want to tell you about the Mountain Lodge mystery series by Diane Kelly. There are only 3 books in this series, which makes me so sad, but those 3 books are very good. The main character in these books is Misty. Misty is 50 years old when the first book starts. She and her husband are getting divorced. It's a very amicable divorce, but Misty has plans for her life. Her sons are both in college, so she's an empty nester. She has bought this mountain lodge in the Blue Ridge Mountains. It's dilapidated, and her plan is to restore it and open it. So she ends up meeting this nice, handsome handyman who comes and helps her refurbish the lodge. There is a neighbor who owns the restaurant next door to the lodge that she becomes friends with. And of course, when the first group comes to stay at the lodge, it's this group who's on a yoga retreat. The yoga teacher ends up being murdered, and all of the guests are suspects. These books are really good. I love the Blue Ridge Mountain setting. They're very cozy. There's one that takes place at around Christmas time where there's snow. These are just such good books. I love the found family aspect. I love the aspect of Misty being this middle-aged woman who is just starting over with her life, and she's finding a lot of joy as she's doing it. Next, the Golden Motel mystery series by Ellen Byron. This series, I think the first book was published in 2024. Another one came out in 2025. They are both so good. They are about a woman named Dee Stern, who was a sitcom writer in Hollywood. When she turned 40, she started to realize that she was becoming obsolete. Apparently, when you're 40, you are considered old in Hollywood, even if you're a screenwriter, not an actor. So she's not getting good jobs for good series. She's writing for this show called Duh for kids that is just really dumb. So she ends up deciding to just throw in the towel on her Hollywood career. She moves out to this town in Northern California where, on a whim, she buys this motel called the Golden Motel. And she decides to restore it and reopen it. She ends up going into partnership with her ex-husband, Jeff. They had an amicable divorce. They're much better as friends than as a married couple. So they open the motel together. These books are just hilarious to me. Ellen Byron she was a writer on the TV show Wings, which I loved back in the 90s. So she knows what she's talking about with her discussion of Hollywood and what it's like to be a screenwriter. There is an agent who is there in this town where Dee has moved, and there's some really hilarious things where Dee starts imagining this like TV show for kids about a bear, and the agent's like, well, oh yeah, we love it. That's a great idea. But why don't we change the bear to a squirrel? And Dee said that's literally based on experiences that she's had, or not Dee, Ellen said that. So these books are just hilarious. I love them so much. And again, we get this screenwriter who is in her 40s, so definitely older than some of the sleuths that we're used to. Next, I really love the Martini Club series by Tess Gerritsen. There are 2 books in this series so far, and I believe there is a third one that's going to be published this year. This series is about retired CIA agents at this small town in Maine. Apparently, Maine really is a popular place for CIA agents to retire, so that's based on a real story. The main character that we follow is Maggie Bird, because Maggie's living in this small town. She's a farmer. She's got chickens. She's got a tractor. She's just living this quiet life. But we find out in the first book that she discovers this body in her yard, and she realizes that it's connected to her past as a CIA agent. So we get to see some of the things that she did in her past. We have some storylines that follow, something that happened back in the 60s or the 70s when she was a CIA agent. It's really fun to read about that. It turns out there are several other retired CIA agents living in this town. There's a married couple. There's a couple of single men who are there, and they all worked together back in the day. Now they're all retired to this small town, but no one knows that they're retired CIA agents. But there's also a law enforcement officer in this town, Joe Thibodeau, this woman who is a really great character. She's the police, maybe the sheriff or the chief of police. And she is pretty good at her job, but she starts suspecting that there is something strange about all of these elderly people who keep coming and trying to help her solve these crimes. These books are really good. They're funny. They're also kind of poignant as these retired CIA agents look back on how much different their lives were when they were younger, how they were treated differently by people, how their bodies were not kind of wearing out as all of our bodies do as we get older. So these books are really good. Next, a very similar series, the Killers of a Certain Age series by Deanna Rayburn. There have also been 2 books in this series. This series is about retired assassins. They used to work for a government organization that would take out bad guys. So they were basically like undercover agents, undercover assassins. So they're all in their 60s. As the series starts, these 4 women are retiring from their organization. It's known as the museum. And the museum has sent them on this cruise for their retirement. But while they're on the cruise, it becomes clear that someone is trying to kill them. And they realize that it's actually people who are working for their agency, the museum, who are trying to take them out. These books are fun because the women go to all of these exotic locations. They travel all around the world in these books. There are 4 of them: Billy, Helen, Mary Alice, and Natalie. They're in their 60s. Again, these books, like the other series I was telling you about, the Martini Club, they have flashbacks to when these women were younger, to how they were treated much differently when they were younger, to now when they're in their 60s. The books are really funny and also really poignant, and I just love this series. The Thursday Murder Club series by Richard Osman. This is a very popular series set in a retirement home in England. I've only read the first book in this series, but I definitely want to continue it. So we've got these 4 retirees, Elizabeth, Joyce, Ibrahim, and Ron, and they live in this retirement home, and they meet every Thursday, not to play games or anything like that, but to look at cases. I think it's maybe cases that the police have solved, and they try to figure out if they can solve them themselves. But then in the first book, they get involved in the real murder of a developer who was going to build some kind of development near their retirement home. Maybe it was going to take over their retirement home or something. I'm not quite sure. I don't quite remember what it was. But anyway, in every book, they're trying to solve some kind of murder. These are people who are pushing 80. It's really interesting to read about their lives and about their reflections on what their lives are like now. The books are a little sad. I know that there's some of the characters are widows or widowers. I think there's one character whose husband has dementia. So they definitely look at what life is realistically like as we age, but they also have really sweet and humorous moments as well, and pretty exciting mysteries. Next, the Hawthorne and Horowitz series by Anthony Horowitz. So Anthony Horowitz is a writer in England. I know he's written for the Foyle's War TV series. He has a bunch of books that he's written. I think the Alex Rider series, I'll go back and edit that out if it's wrong, but he has some very popular series that he's written. So in this book, Anthony Horowitz actually makes himself a character in the books. The writer, Anthony Horowitz, gets involved in some mysteries, and he ends up working with this detective, this disgraced former police detective named Daniel Hawthorne. And so Daniel Hawthorne is just this really complex character. he has some good things that he's done. Like, he's a good detective. He's very observant, very methodical, very smart, but he's also extremely hard to get along with. He has a very complex personal life that Horowitz is always trying to figure out what makes this man tick. What makes him such a good detective? Is he really a good guy, or is he more of a bad guy? And you're never really sure, but he's great at solving mysteries. Both of these men are probably in their 50s. I don't know that it ever tells their exact age, but I know Horowitz has adult children. Hawthorne, is, you can just tell that he's not a young guy. He's had a whole career. So they're really fun books. I love the meta aspect of Anthony Horowitz actually being a character in the books. There are like 4 or 5 books in this series now. I've read the first 3 and really enjoyed them, and I need to get caught up on the series. Finally, the last book on my list is actually a series that I have not read yet, but it's on my TBR, and that is the Vera Wong series by Jessie Q. Sutanto. So Vera Wong is a tea shop owner in her 60s. She lives in California, and apparently she's kind of lonely. She doesn't really have that many friends. She has a son, but maybe doesn't have the closest relationship with him. One day she finds a dead body in her tea shop. So the police come to investigate, but Vera is really curious about what happened. She starts investigating, and the book blurb says, "Who can figure things out better than a suspicious Chinese mother with time on her hands?" So this series sounds really great. I've heard people talk about it and say that there are great found family aspects of it, that Vera Wong is just a wonderful character to read about. So this has been on my TBR for so long. Maybe 2026 will be the year that I finally read these books. I believe there are 2 books in that series now. Thank you for watching. Do any of these series sound like ones that you would like to read? Are there any that I've missed that have middle-aged or older sleuths in them? Please let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Now, you go solve a mystery while I read.